Hey guys, so I'm gonna make spaghetti squash, and this is a vegetable that growing up I had never seen in my life. It's not something that we ate in our house. I had never even heard of it until well into my adulthood. And then a nutritionist brought it up, and I tried it, and it was good. Um, at the time, it was brought up to replace spaghetti, looking for low carb options. But now, I mean, I just eat it as a vegetable. I don't eat it as a replacement for spaghetti. I just think it's good as a vegetable, and it's really mild flavored, so you can basically flavor it with whatever you want. Today, I'm going to go Greek style. So I have some onion, I have some red bell pepper, I have some Kalamata olives, I have some garlic that I sliced thin on the mandolin, I have some frozen spinach and some feta cheese. That's the mandolin I used right there. If you're doing that with garlic, be super careful because high chance that you can cut yourself. You have to go really slow because the garlic is small and the blade is huge. And I have half a red bell pepper and half of an onion. First thing I'm going to do is preheat the oven to 400 degrees because this is going to bake at 400. Then I'm going to get my baking sheet. I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper right over it. And I'm going to spritz it with some olive oil. And I'm just going to brush the olive oil nice and even all over so that it doesn't stick when I put the spaghetti squash. Okay, so most people cut their spaghetti squash lengthwise. I'm not doing that because I want to cook it faster. I want to cook it in 30 minutes. And number two, because I want long strands of spaghetti squash. I want it like to look like spaghetti. And you have a better chance of getting long strands if you cut it this way versus the long way. So I'm going to cut. You need a good knife for this, a big knife, because spaghetti squash is hard to cut. So stick the end in of the knife first, the point. Make yourself a nice line, and then you kind of just rock back and forth and it cuts it. And do you see, let me see if I can get this close enough. Do you see how there's like a swirl pattern? That's because that's the way the strands go. So if you cut it the long ways, you're getting small strands. But if you cut it in rounds, then you get the long spaghetti squash. Anyway, so let me cut the other end off. Get the point in there. All right. Ugh. There we go. I'm going to cut rounds like this, 1-inch rounds. So let me get the knife in. Okay. Woo! That's a workout. Now you're just going to scoop or rip out the seeds with your hand. You can use a spoon to scrape it. I just use my hand. Okay, once you get all the guts out, just put them on the baking sheet, and you're going to want to spritz them with some olive oil all around. And then you're going to just take your brush and just spread the olive oil. Make sure that it's nice and even. Get the insides because you want this to get nice and toasty. You don't want this to get. That's another thing, that when you do it in rings like this, the spaghetti squash isn't all watery and like mushy. It dries out a little bit more when you bake it this way. So when you scoop it out, you don't have all that water, which is what you get when you cut it in half and put it upside down. It like steams it. I had this end piece and I couldn't really make a ring out of it, so I just cut it in half to make it fit on here, and we're gonna eat it. Oh, the oven is preheated. And then I'm just gonna season it with a little bit of coarse salt, and I'm gonna do some fresh cracked black pepper also. Okay, so while that starts to bake, I just pop that in the oven at 400. I put it for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to check it because depending on how thick you cut the slices, you might need a little longer, and I did some pretty thick slices. So I got my mandolin, and now I am going to cut the onion really super thin because I want it thin like the spaghetti strands, and I'm going to do the same with the red pepper because I want everything long and thin like the spaghetti, and then that way everything is uniform. So I have my onion thinly sliced. It's really thin. See that? Nice. And now I'm going to do the red pepper. And that right there is what you want. Really super thin sliced little ribbons of red pepper. Perfect. Done. Okay, so I have my garlic, my peppers, my onions, all chopped, thinly sliced. I have these little pieces, these little ends left over that were difficult to cut on the mandolin, but I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to chop them up and put them in a container in the fridge because that will be delicious in some eggs later this week. And why am I chopping it now? Because the knife is out, the cutting board is out, so why not chop it now? And then when I go to use it for the eggs, I don't have to chop it later. It'll be meal prepped and chopped and ready to put in my eggs. Simple. And voila. This is going to go in a container, and this is going to be perfect in some eggs later this week. And it's already chopped and ready to go. Ta-da! Okay, so I have some frozen spinach that I took out of the freezer, and I'm going to put it in this little mesh basket because I'm going to defrost it. Right under the faucet, I'm just going to run some water over it, get it defrosted, and then I'm going to just squeeze all the water out of it, and it's ready to go. So I'm just squeezing all the water out of the spinach. It's defrosted, it's thawed, and voila, there you go. Ready to go. That's going to melt into the peppers and onions perfectly. So I'm going to turn a skillet on, and I'm going to put about a quarter cup of olive oil in the pan. And this sounds like a lot of olive oil, but this is going to be the sauce for the pasta. Spaghetti squash. Okay, and one of the last ingredients that I'm using is Kalamata olives. If you don't like olives, you can leave this out. I love olives. And Kalamata olives are my favorite olive ever. And then my second favorite are the green with the little red peppers or pimentos in them. But Kalamata are my favorite olive in the whole world. So I'm just cutting them into little rings because when the pasta's done, I'm going to sprinkle the olives on top of the pasta with the feta cheese. Every time I say pasta, I mean spaghetti squash. Okay, so the pan is nice and hot. I'm just going to start putting in my onions, my red peppers, and I'm going to let them cook down a little bit, caramelize, soften up before I put the garlic in. Okay, so these have been cooking down for about 10 minutes. They're nice and soft, and I did season them with a little salt and pepper. Now I'm going to take all the garlic that I sliced thinly on the mandolin, and I'm going to put that in here and give it a nice stir and get the garlic softened up and cooked nice and sweet. Okay, the 30-minute timer just went off. This just came out of the oven, and I can tell just by looking at it that it's not done because you want a little bit of toasty brown on it. There's no brown here. Also, this should look, it should pull apart right away. It's not. The smaller one, look at that. See, it's starting to pull apart, but it's not done. So this is going to go back in the oven for another 15 minutes. And in the meantime, I am putting the spinach in the pan with the peppers, onions, and garlic. And I'm just going to give it a nice stir, get everything incorporated, get the spinach warmed up so that then I can mix it into the spaghetti squash. You can also season it with a little more cracked pepper. I'm not going to do salt because the feta cheese and the olives are very salty, so I'm just doing cracked pepper. Okay, now this looks perfect. See how there's a little bit of brown on the edges? That's exactly what you want to see. So this ended up being in there for 45 minutes. It all depends on how thick you cut the slices, and not every squash is the same. So just check it. See how it pulls apart from the skin so easily? That's exactly what you want. So I'm just going to take this apart, pull the spaghetti off the shell, the peel, and I'm going to start mixing it into the pan. That's it. Perfect. And I'm going to separate half of the spaghetti squash for this meal that I'm making now. The other half, I'm going to save 3 rings in one of those little pieces, and I'm going to make a different spaghetti squash dish. Okay, so if you look, I just put all the spaghetti squash in the pan and I'm just going to mix it with the olive oil, spinach. Look how long those spaghetti strands are. It literally looks like spaghetti. And I'm just going to mix it well with the peppers, onions, garlic, and that's it. It's ready to eat. I'm going to plate it and I'm going to put a sprinkling of feta cheese and olives on top, and bon appetit. Now, this is delicious just like this, but I'm sprinkling some chopped Kalamata olives, and I'm also going to put some nice, creamy, salty feta cheese. Some people put the feta cheese in the pan and let it melt. I don't like melted feta cheese. I like to feel the bites of feta cheese as I'm eating it. And that's it. A little feta, a little olives, and you, my friend, have yourself a delicious, yummy plate of spaghetti here, Greek style. Look at those long strands of spaghetti. It's like you're eating spaghetti. So good. Yum. Look at the olives, the feta, the spinach. So good. Mm-mm-mm. This half I'm saving because I'm going to use vodka sauce, ground up turkey, and some Parmesan, and I'm going to make a vodka meat sauce styled spaghetti squash. I'll show you that tomorrow. I'm going to pull the spaghetti strands off now and just put it in the fridge, and I'm going to make that tomorrow. My kids do not like spaghetti squash, so one spaghetti squash, I get 2 meals for me and my husband, one Greek style and then one Italian style. Anyway, I hope I inspired you to try something different. If spaghetti squash is something that you've never tried, it's something that you can use as a spaghetti alternative instead of eating pasta if you're trying to do low carb, or you can just make yourself a different, yummy, delicious side dish as a veggie. And something else that I do if I have leftovers, I'll take the spaghetti squash and I'll put it in my eggs. And it's a way to bulk up your eggs but get some extra fiber and vegetable in your body. But try it. You might love it. Tomorrow, I'm going to post the meat sauce and Parmesan spaghetti squash, traditional Italian spaghetti kind of thing. And that is even more delicious. Anyway, thanks for watching.